Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, bark like a dog for me.
Where's the goodies?
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
My gosh, are people still listening to the radio? You betcha. Yes,
Absolutely.
They are.
Absolutely.
And
one form
that's
or another.
why what you're doing right now, everything old is new again. Yes, it is. It's new. It's something that people have not done for a while and say, oh my gosh, I could listen to that. They're creative people. And that's what's wonderful.
Yeah. Yes, that's the late, great Bob Caliban from Radio Mystery Theater. It is Everything Old is New Again. And we're back in Mayhem. With, let's just say, here comes the judge himself, David Cohen. How are you, David?
I'm very well, Doug. Looking forward to 17 more shows of who the funniest person in the world is.
Exactly. That's what if you haven't heard, that's what Mayhem is all about. This is the 5th show. We're down to 32 now out of 68. And this show, we're going to bring the next 2 shows, I should say, we're going to bring it down to the Sweet 16. We're aided by the magistrate himself, Dan Newberger. Dan, how are you?
Heidi ho, fellas.
Very good. Cab Calloway reference. How about that? We are just going to dive into it, I think. But just to explain it, if anybody hasn't listened to any of our shows about this, it's like a March Madness. It's the brackets. We now are down to 32. I'm not going to list all of them. The first 2 of which are Christopher Guest and Martin Short. And how we do it is we do sort of a round robin where, someone's going to go first and describe who they suggest is the winner. And then we'll go down the list to each of us and take turns doing that. So first and foremost, we will start with our guest, Dan Newberger. Dan, out of these 2, who would you select and why?
So the very first pairing, you're already blowing my mind up. Both are incredibly talented, and I believe that they both have left a lasting impression on the world of comedy. Christopher Guest has a terrific deadpan delivery. I love the think on your feet improv skills that he showcased in movies like This Is Spinal Tap and Best in Show. Martin Short, on the other hand, infectiously energetic, physical style of humor. He's also created memorable characters on SCTV and SNL, whatever. But if you don't like the frenetic pace of Martin Short's brand of comedy, he can be hard to take. Alan R. in Massachusetts said, and I quote, "He's not funny. Christopher Guest takes him easily." But Jim S. in Philadelphia says, "Martin Short gives me the quickest, strongest belly laughs because he's great at being silly." So, people have very strong feelings one way or the other. I do think Martin Short is funny, but I have to give him more the nod to the more sarcastic sense of humor. And so I'm voting for Christopher Guest.
Interesting. Christopher Guest, have you ever seen him do anything but the movies that he's done? I don't know if we've seen him do stand-up. We've seen him on other shows, have we not, here and there?
Wasn't he on, or I don't know, ever since I can remember when I was, much, much younger, and This Is Spinal Tap came out, which I thought was fantastic for different reasons that I think it's fantastic today. But I've enjoyed everything he's done over a very long period of time. And Martin Short is hilarious. He cracks me up. He's just a fun character to watch. But after I watch like a couple of episodes of Murder in the Building, I want to murder myself in the building, because it's like, all right, enough already with the character. I get it. It's a little over the top. So I don't know. I'm just more comfortable with Christopher Guest.
A non-answer, but we'll go with it. To my question, David Cohen.
Yeah, listen, I love all of Christopher Guest movies too. I really love them, especially Waiting for Guffman, one of my all-time favorite movies. Martin Short, though, constantly cracks me up. And regardless of what kind of character he's playing or if he's just playing himself, I mean, he's created some characters that I just think are some of the greatest of all time. It's really hard to do this, but I guess, Christopher Guest, if he had a great ensemble cast with him. And there were a lot of things that kind of broke his way in those movies that helped him or helped make them funny. Whereas Martin Short, if you're just kind of judging the guy himself, I think he does a lot more, and he's more, to me, consistently like laugh out loud funny. So I've got to go with Martin Short.
All right, there we go. I will add my 2 cents. The decision's been made anyway, but it might not be unanimous.
How has the decision been made? There's only been 2 votes.
Yeah, 2 out of 3.
Huh?
Yeah, but we both voted differently.
We voted differently.
Maybe you weren't paying attention. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Are you recording the show? We'll wait a minute if you want to rewind and just listen again.
I don't listen to half of what you say, David Cohen. No, I'm kidding. I'm trying to say this, that I'm going to have the difficult choice here of deciding between 2 that are, and this will be the whole day, extremely talented. Christopher Guest, I can watch those movies over and over and over and over and over again, but, and he did this new kind of performance art, if you will, with these films that he's made, where there's a lot of improv, and he surrounded himself with tremendously talented individuals and handed them the ball. So, are those movies all him? I mean, by definition, it's the improv of Fred Willard and all the others. But I love his stuff. But I have to say that even to the book that I just recently read of Martin Short's, and he's out there with Steve Martin on a tour, and he's, in innumerable projects. Even in the movies, he was funny, and even like a movie that's so kind of middle of the road, like Father of the Bride. He created that character, the wedding planner, that Frank, I think his name was something you'll remember and talk about. And always puts a smile on my face whenever he goes to these, Tonight Show and any appearance he makes. He prepares. He's got stories galore. He's got imitations. He's endless with the different things that he can do. So to me, it's Martin Short, and that's the bottom line. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if it was Jiminy Glick, I think I would take Jiminy Glick. I'd vote for him, and that's just one of so many great characters. Dan just got up and walked out of the room. So he might be a little. I think he might be a little peeved.
He's right.
Well, we might have to go without Dan the rest of the show.
He's furious.
I'm writing you guys up. I'm sending a note to the whoever the FTC or somebody.
He's writing Yelp.
Furiously taking notes
because this is what happened last time. I think it was the very first voting. Rodney Dangerfield or somewhere in the process got voted off of the island, and I'm still reeling from that. And now the very first pairing of the day today, you guys blow my mind, and you're both wrong, but we can move on.
Second pairing, we've got to do this a little quicker, I'm sorry to say. Larry David, Lucille Ball. This starts off with David Cohen.
Well, if you listen to past shows, I'm probably one of the few people around that just never thought Lucille Ball was that funny. So it's Larry David for me.
Okay. Lucille Ball, lots of slapstick, a pioneer, if you will. I don't know. And does this even matter if her comedy holds up? If I turn on that show today, I Love Lucy, I'm not so sure that I'm laughing anymore about the hijinks of being involved in a confusing situation and a mistake that was made, and she's in the wrong place at the wrong time. Although extremely talented and also a great producer, and she did greenlight Star Trek, so a lot in her favor. Larry David, 11 seasons of a show that goes strong. He's another, just like Christopher Guest in some ways, though he is different because he's carrying that show. He's in most, if not all, of the scenes. So it's not like Christopher Guest where he sets it up and lets others do it and it backs off. Larry David is involved in that show intimately, and of course the driving force, or one of them, behind Seinfeld. So I have to go with Larry David on all of those grounds, with a tremendous tip of the cap to Lucille Ball.
So it's 2 for Larry David?
It is.
Well, we're going to make it a clean sweep then, because I think they're both masters of their craft. They really do. I mean, you had, by the way, thank you, gentlemen, for all of your listeners providing feedback on this. But some listeners, like Marty K in New Jersey, said this one isn't even close for me. I disagree with that. But others, like John H in New York, said Lucy made a name for women in comedy and was a groundbreaker. That's certainly true. Once again, not an easy choice. But I have an affinity for wit over slapstick, and so I have to agree. David K from New Jersey said it well. Larry David can make a mundane situation become outrageously funny. So I give him my vote, too.
How about that? So some of these listeners are making better points than we are in some cases. But all in all, we are through the first 2 challenges. Martin Short, Larry David move on to the Sweet 16. We'll be back right after this and Everything Old is New Again, and continue with the Mayhem. Who is the funniest person of all time?
See that? Oh, please.
Pick out two.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
It's very kind of you to invite me along to the show. You're nuts, you two.
Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you for your time. What a wonderful show. Thank you.
Yes, we are back here on Everything Old is New Again. That's Chris Difford from Squeeze. Enjoyed our time with him, and he apparently enjoyed his time with us. David Cohen, do you remember that?
Of course. Is he gonna? Let's get him back with Glenn Tilbrook. Can we do that?
I will definitely reach out to him. He was very amenable last time. Just a scheduling issue, but other than that, he loved the show. Had a fun time.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Called us nuts. So anyway, we're back with Mayhem, David Cohen, Douglas Viviani, joined by Dan Newberger. Dan, we are narrowing or whittling down 32 funny individuals to the Sweet 16. And really, at this point in time, we've already had some surprises, difficult choices. Here's another one. Mike Myers versus Betty White. I go first on this. The longevity of Betty White and her ability to be funny from basically the 60s through to her very recent passing on New Year's Eve 2021 carries a lot of weight with me. But
22.
What's that?
22.
What did you say?
22. New Year's Eve, 22, not 21.
December 31st, 2021, she died.
Was it really? It's been over a year?
Yeah.
See? I think I'm voting for her on that basis alone.
All right. Well, Mike Myers, though, everything he's done has been original and creative for sure. All the characters on Saturday Night Live, those movies that he's made, though it's been quite some time since he's made any movie or done anything. Does that count for anything? It doesn't in my book. I think what he's done is a good body of work, but I don't love it. It doesn't make me laugh out loud. Betty White does. I'm going with Betty White. Dan?
Well, Betty White certainly has the advantage of being funny for a much, much longer period of time than Mike Myers. I don't know that that's fair to hold that against him. I think both, again, really talented, different styles, as you point out. I love Austin Powers, and I love Wayne's World, that whole franchise. I think Mike Myers on Saturday Night Live was fantastic. Betty White, on the other hand, sharp comedic timing made her a beloved figure in the entertainment industry for decades. I mean, we all, I'm sure, remember her, on Mary Tyler Moore, and then, of course, Golden Girls, whatever. But I think based solely on the versatility of their act, I'm actually going to vote for Mike Myers, and I hope that Betty White won't hold it against me in the afterlife.
Well, now it's down. It's 1-1. It's down to David Cohen.
Oh, I hate being the tiebreaker. It's a tiebreaker, right, Doug? You guys didn't vote for the same person like you thought last time.
That's correct.
So this is a real tough one because, I loved all the Mike Myers movies and I loved all his characters. But again, I'm going to go down to who just makes me laugh. And Betty White, I think, makes me laugh more than Mike Myers did or does. So I'm going to go with Betty White.
There it is. Betty White moves on.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with
16.
that.
I'm okay with
pairing.
that too. Yes.
It is.
Here's one that I don't know.
You can't beat Sue-Ann Niven, man.
I guess the only thing you can say is she didn't create anything that she did, but she had amazing timing and presence. Mike Myers pretty much created and wrote everything that he did.
So who did you vote for?
I still voted for Betty, but you got to give the guy credit. You just got to give the guy credit.
She made stupidity funny. I know that sounds terrible, but she did. I mean, the character that she played in Mary Tyler Moore, she was dumb as a bag of doorknobs, but she was absolutely hilarious.
We can certainly relate to that. So now,
well, Sue-Ann Niven was not dumb as a bag of doornails, though. That was a great thing about her character. She was smarter than anyone else on that show. It was just a persona that she played. Golden Girls, that was a different character, but yeah. And Doug, so you are not the first funny person to make stupidity funny.
Exactly.
I know you usually claim that title, but
because mine is inadvertent. I don't do it on purpose. She did it on purpose, so there's a difference there. All right, so we're down to another pairing: Bob Newhart, David Letterman. Dan, you begin this one off. Dan, you begin this one.
So this is Bob Newhart against David Letterman.
Yes,
two of my favorite comedians. Okay, so. I think, so one of your listeners by the name of Alan R. in Massachusetts, I think said it probably better than I could say it. He said, I have an innate bias towards the pioneers. They may not get as quick a laugh out of us in the 21st century, but in their time, they were inventing entire genres out of nothing. And I think that that's actually a really good, insightful comment. Not to take anything away from Letterman, who I have always loved. He's got an irreverent, offbeat humor, bizarre stunts. Remember the thing with the Alka-Seltzer thing he taped to himself and jumped into a pool of water? I would have to agree with Alan and choose Newhart because of his really iconic bits and his brilliant TV shows that we've talked about in other episodes. So my vote goes to Bob Newhart.
David Cohen, I think I know where you're going with this.
Well, when you started talking about Pioneer, Dan, I thought you were talking about Letterman, honestly. Because I of the two, I would say he was more of a pioneer in terms of the space and what he did with the talk show, than Bob Newhart did with comedy or with sitcoms. But I love both. I mean, this is I'd never want to make this kind of decision, but I do have to lean towards Letterman just because he's one of my favorites of all time.
Now, this one is sort of very personal in a way to me because both of these individuals I almost have seen, I would say, close to everything that they've done without hesitation as they were doing it, as they were in the prime of their career. Bob Newhart and Saturday Nights before Mary Tyler Moore, that show, and certainly his telephone. He stands up and does these routines where he's the one person on the telephone that you can hear talking to somebody else. That is creative and somewhat certainly unique back in the 60s. Letterman, for sure. I mean, David and I were head over heels over this gentleman in terms of his shows, especially the first, I don't know the time frame, but the first 20 of 25 years, something like that. To me, the end, like all of us, I think, to me, the end, he got a little bit routine. He didn't go to the streets anymore and do those sort of bits that he did earlier on. The top 10 list got a little bit played. But, I mean, the creativity of, I would watch, do you do this anymore? I would wait up for sure till his show would come on late night and watch it and probably watch the whole thing almost every single night. I just loved what he did in the streets.
I just watch it the next day. Well, I always had a tape.
And there you go. You were smarter than me. But it always was rewarding. Again, I think if we all be honest, the last little bit of it. But what did he do? He started in 1980 and finished in 2015. So think about that longevity as well. So and the creativity of all different kind of things, of throwing things off a building, so stupid, but just little things like that, and interviewing the deli guy next door, and all those various bits that he did. Then being so creative, where he would, like we heard that Andy Kaufman bit where he had Jerry Lawler on his show, and it was the slap and everything else, and he just deadpanned, responded with a funny line after that. So I think that to me, by a hair, David Letterman wins over Bob Newhart. Anybody have any comments about that?
I feel like I'm playing the NCAA brackets again because 3 of my 4 brackets have been busted already today.
David, we are now looking at Martin Short, Larry David, Betty White, and David Letterman so far in the Sweet 16. You're looking forward to seeing them go on to their next competition.
About that, yeah.
I think I like the way it's going so far. Hopefully your listener likes the way it's going so far. If you don't, or if you do, you want to communicate with us. It's oldnewagain at AOL.com, oldnewagain at AOL.com. You can go to the website, of course, EverythingOldIsNewAgain.biz, and communicate that way if you prefer. We'd love to hear from you. You can hear, obviously, you're getting your comments and your feedbacks. Feedback is coming right out of the mouth of Dan Newberger when appropriate. And Dan, anybody say anything about those two that you'd like to add besides what we said? Someone that said something about Letterman, just give us icing on the cake to say, you know what, you did the right thing.
Well, the only comments that were made were actually in favor of Bob Newhart.
All right, so give us a strong one. Let's go out on that.
All right. Well, let's see. Marty K. in New Jersey said, how can you beat Bob Newhart's great delivery and deadpan sense of humor? let's see, Jenny in New York said one of my top picks because he's so deadpan.
Well, they were both deadpan too, don't you think? Yeah, I think they were.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. I mean, look, it's interesting because I mean, I love David Letterman. I'm not going to argue that he shouldn't be, considered on this list. I personally think that Bob Newhart is funnier, but it's shades of gray. But the four that we've ended up with in this particular bracket completely changes the outcome of my whole thinking now, because I got three of the four different than where we went. So it completely changes everything. And I'm actually glad to see that Betty White is in the final four of this particular bracket. I love her. That was a really hard one for me. I had to go with Mike Myers, as you heard, but I love her. So no real surprises, but it's completely different than what I thought.
It's going to get you thinking on your feet now because you're, sort of have different people to choose between. So we'll be back right after this and Everything Old is New Again to continue with the May Madness.
Hi, this is James Naughton. I've been an actor all my life and a director, done a little singing along the way. You are listening to Everything Old is New Again radio show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Yes, that's James Naughton, Emmy Award winner for Chicago, and he starred in the television show Planet of the Apes, been on our show a couple of times talking about Our Town and Paul Newman that he directed in Our Town. And it's great to have all these celebrities, so to speak, checking in, because that's what we're doing. We're checking in on them, if you will, on Mayhem here on Everything Old is New Again, trying to find out who is the funniest person of all time. We're in our final 32, bringing them down in the next two shows to the Sweet 16 here with David Cohen and Dan Newberger. We are going to hear the challenge right now, and David Cohen, you're going to start us off with Gary Shandling against Dana Carvey.
Oh, gosh.
How about
this?
This
is an absolute coin flip.
In a good way, because they're so challenging, right?
Yeah. Of course. Dana Carvey, you could just push the on button and he'll just talk for an hour, 2 hours, and just make me laugh, and with impressions and stories from old actors he met, and just an inherently incredibly funny guy. But Gary Shandling, he broke some barriers, and he was a comedian's comedian and did things that, I should. So close, but I'm just going to say Gary Shandling. I really don't care.
You don't care, and I know what you're saying. You don't care because they're both winners in your. I know it sounds silly,
I'll
but
take whoever.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I feel the same way, but I do have a little bit more of a feeling for Gary Shandling, only in that I loved his creativity. Sort of made me smile more as stand-up. The two shows he had, that show when he was a talk show host, the Larry Sanders Show. He was more or less the straight person, I guess I'll say, in that show, but surrounded himself and created that show with a brilliant idea, and I just really loved that show. And I think that carries it more for me, because Dana Carvey did great stuff with Saturday Night Live, and now to this day you hear him on Stern or wherever he is, he's still hysterical. But for long-lasting work that and a number of projects that I love, Gary Shandling stand-up, Gary Shandling show, the Larry Sanders Show, I have to go with Gary Shandling on this. Dan?
Oh, my God. Busted another bracket for me.
Oh, wow.
I mean, honestly, this one was really pretty easy for me. I like Gary Shandling, but I love Dana Carvey. He created so many memorable characters, the church lady, Garth from Wayne's World. And I think I had previously shared with you guys in an earlier episode that I had met him, and he was so witty, so quick on his feet.
All right,
with
fine.
the improv.
No, let's just Dana Carvey. Let's just do Dana Carvey.
Yeah, there you go. See, everybody just changed their mind. Look, again, Gary Shandling is no slouch, but he's too one-dimensional for me. So read my lips. Dana Carvey should have won this category.
Well, do you feel that Dana Carvey is somewhat analogous to Dan Aykroyd in that the majority of, and it's not really fair because he did some movies that were funny, but I want to just throw it out there. Majority of his work that was successful was on Saturday Night Live, and that's it? You tell me.
No, I think as a stand-up, the guy is brilliant. And Gary Shandling as a stand-up is funny, but he's not brilliant. So to me, the key differentiator for me in my mind was Gary Shandling, funny, one-dimensional. Dana Carvey, funny, and much more like versatility, I guess is the right word.
Okay, I can see that, but it.
All right, no, I'm going to switch back to Dana Carvey.
There is no switching.
Can I do that?
No.
Why not?
No.
We didn't write rules down.
We cannot switch.
What? Oh.
That's it. You chose. You can't switch.
Wow.
Your vote's your vote, my man. That's why we're doing it in a row like this. All right, now.
So Gary Shandling wins that?
Gary Shandling wins that.
Even though I changed my vote?
A replay. Yeah, I want a replay on that.
No, because you change your vote, then we're going to change votes all throughout the rest of the whole show. It's not.
Yeah, so
that's not going.
I'm not going back and changing a vote from last week.
Bill?
I'm just changing my mind on the current vote that's up right now. Dan changed my mind.
Life is full of disappointments. Bill Cosby and Richard Pryor.
Wow. I'd like to psychoanalyze this decision, Doug. It's like, why are you making this decision like this? So weird.
Because rules are rules. We haven't changed. That's what. Listen, we're not going to do it.
There were no rules. We never talked about.
We have
there
limited
wasn't
time.
A rule. This was never discussed as a rule.
Bill Cosby, Richard Pryor. I'm going to lay this out, and I'm going to say something controversial here. Richard Pryor was the funniest stand-up comedian of his day for at least 10 years in the 70s. Groundbreaking. He did a number of movies that were funny, did some great appearances on Saturday Night Live. Towards the end, sort of made more mundane movies, but the movies he made with in the beginning, Silver Streak and so forth, I mean, just funny stuff, groundbreaking. Bill Cosby, did he break any ground? Well, his stand-up, which is a sit-down in a chair, is just as funny. He got a huge time frame when he carried the day for his time on television with his television shows. But I don't know that he was that funny on the Cosby Show. You tell me when he did the later Cosby Show. So to me, by a hair, and not because of social things, but I think people are voting with me on this one. Richard Pryor wins this battle.
So what? It was a big buildup. Why was that controversial?
Well, I don't know, because we'll see what happens. Dan,
it wasn't controversial at all, is what I'm saying.
All right, good. Dan?
Well, I do want to just make one comment about something you just said. Don't forget, while I agree that Richard Pryor was like the preeminent stand-up comic for a very long period of time, so was Bill Cosby in his time period. And I think my brother Russell was probably the funniest, I think, well, maybe one of the top 2 comedy albums ever produced. We'll talk about the other one in a little bit, I'm sure. But look, I know in prior discussions you both said that we needed to remove from consideration the other extenuating circumstances surrounding the contenders. But I have to tell you, I got so many brownie points from my wife listening to the prior episode where we talked about Cosby in a previous pairing and he won. And I voted against him. And my wife was so proud of me that based on that and the fact that I think that Richard Pryor is a genius. I mean, one of your listeners, Rob G. in Pennsylvania, said Pryor was a great stand-up, great comedic actor, and groundbreaking, as you pointed out, Doug. And Rob G. said that he thinks that Richard Pryor should actually win the entire bracket. If you remember, Richard Pryor also tackled a lot of issues like race, politics, and so on. And he was like just fearless and unapologetic the way he went about it. I mean, remember, he literally lit himself on fire freebasing and then came back to the stage and did a HBO comedy special making fun of himself. So in honor of his style of humor, I'm going to be raw and honest, and I am just going to vote to eliminate Cosby from further consideration for all the other crap, and I'm voting for Richard Pryor.
David Cohen.
Oh, so there's 2 Richard Pryors?
That's correct.
Okay, I don't have to vote.
Well,
no, you have to vote.
You have to vote. See, he's making. See
Oh,
how
is
he.
this another
Dan,
rule?
you see how he makes the rules up as he goes.
Is this
you
another
see?
rule that we're
never
making
not
up on the
voted.
fly?
No, it's that
We
it
don't
doesn't
vote
make a
on
difference.
it or anything.
Yeah, no, well, it doesn't make a difference what your vote is, but we still want to know what you think and why.
I would stick with Betty White. I think of Cosby and Richard Pryor, I'd take Betty White. No, fine. Yeah, Richard Pryor, sure. Okay.
I feel like you're mailing it in today.
Yeah, I mean, this is a radio show. We have time to fill. We want to hear your thoughts, my man.
I can't. Well, no, because I gave you my thought last time, and I was overruled on what I thought. So you
weren't overruled. Okay. All right. So let's move on then. We will then go a little bit ahead, and we have a little. We don't have that much time.
David, I think later on you should lobby to have the ability to have one change made. Because I would support that for other reasons. I got my own agenda here.
Where were you 10 minutes ago, then, Dan? What happened?
Well, I didn't think of it until now. So.
All right, we'll be back right at this and Everything Old is New Again. We're going to continue trying to find out who is the funniest person of all time. We're narrowing it down from 32 to 16 in the next two shows. Right now, we've got Gary Shandling, Richard Pryor, David Letterman, Betty White, Martin Short, and Larry David. We'll be back right at this. Everything Old is New Again. Continue with Kate McKinnon and Harold Ramis. Come on back.
Doing the curly shuffle. Hey, Mo, hey, Mo. Hey, Mo, hey, Mo. Well, yuck, 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 yuck. Yuck, 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 yuck. Look at the grouse, look at the grouse. Look at the grouse, look at the grouse. Well, we never miss a chance. We get up and dance and do the curly shuffle. Right, we do the curly shuffle. What'd you say? We do the curly.
Okay, what is happening now, Jay? Well, we're going to return to Everything Old is New Again with Doug and Dave. Oh, okay. I got nothing else better to do.
We are back. That's our first celebrity guest, Jay Johnson from Soap, a comedian, I guess we'd say, in his own right. And we are
he
trying
didn't make the list, did he?
He did not make the list. Yeah, neither did Billy Crystal.
He was funny.
Really think about it. What happened to Billy Crystal? People might say something about that.
Was Billy Crystal even in the...
No, wasn't even in the 68.
What happened? Oh, God, we blew that one.
Yeah.
How is he not even in the original 68?
Well, we had a large process before this of selecting and then we each eliminated. Didn't we? What did we do? We eliminated each other's people here and there, and whatever. For some reason, he fell through the cracks, and he was on Soap.
Yeah. As I remember, Doug, you wanted Aristophanes, and I think David and I insisted that you take that one off.
Correct.
Neither one of us has any idea who Aristophanes.
Speaking of not knowing anyone, do people really know that's listening? I hope they do. Harold Ramis and Kate McKinnon, they are up against each other right now.
See, Doug, why? Dan, are you getting the impression, I mean, maybe I'm not bringing my game today, but anytime we try to talk to Doug today, he's like, well, he just moves on. He starts announcing the next pairing.
Because we have a limitation of time, and I've got to get through
the easy way out.
I got to get through 16 characters today, and you guys just want to drag your feet because you don't want to make a decision, and then you want to change your mind. No, we make decisions here, and we stick with it. So, who goes first here? Dan, Harold Ramis, Kate McKinnon.
I think he accused me of being dour last time, which still sounds like a bad
droll. Droll.
It is
wasn't dour.
Dan.
Droll. The word was droll.
Intended.
Oh, droll. Oh, sorry.
Droll.
You can't even remember. You can't even remember one show to the next. Oh my God! And you're the magic. I called you a magistrate today. Do I get any credit for that?
Okay. All right. I'm with you. I'll shut up now.
Wait till I call you next week.
This one. All right.
Who is this?
This is
Kate McKinnon and Harold Ramis.
Okay, I was surprised by listener feedback on this one. So they unanimously supported Kate McKinnon over Harold Ramis. They said things like she's a chameleon, she makes everything funny with her perfect timing. I don't disagree, but Harold Ramis is a comedy icon to me as a writer, as a director, as an actor. I mean, remember, he co-wrote and starred in classic comedies like Ghostbusters, Caddyshack, Groundhog Day. I totally get and respect that Kate McKinnon is and was a fantastically funny cast member of SNL, and she commits to the characters that she portrays. I think she's hilarious, but I do not see her body of work standing up at all next to Harold Ramis. So my vote goes to Harold Ramis.
David Cohen.
Well, again, I look at it differently. I look at it who makes me laugh more. I don't care about how long you've been around or what movies you were in or whatever. Harold Ramis, when he was on the screen, I always thought he was the weakest link in any movie he was ever in. And I know he was the creative genius behind these movies. Yes, of course. But when he's on the screen, he's not making me laugh. She's making me laugh like every time she's on. 100% of the time. So my vote goes to Kate McKinnon.
Okay. Different points of view. My point of view is this. Kate McKinnon, the number of impressions that she can do is beyond belief, what she's done on Saturday Night Live. Thereafter, she's had some success in television, certainly, and movies. Harold Ramis is a more or less a writer. He is a performer, but more or less a writer and producer. And we have Neil Simon, and we did talk about others that were just writers. So we're talking about funny people. Does that mean that they have to be funny on screen or not? I don't know. I'm throwing it out there. To me, Harold Ramis, for all the reasons that Dan mentioned and more, makes me funny through the words that he puts on paper, for sure. And I'm going to have to go that way with Harold Ramis on this one. So Harold Ramis, and we may get some controversy here on that one, but Harold Ramis wins for me on that.
So glad I didn't have another one of my brackets ruined.
Well, you didn't think Harold Ramis would win? Is that what you're saying?
I voted for Harold Ramis, but I know that Kate McKinnon is absolutely hilarious, and I understand all the points that David made. I don't disagree with any of them. I actually thought that you were going to go with Kate McKinnon. I'm sorry, I'm surprised by that. But
well, he also had a big impression, left a big impression on me with back in the early days of SCTV. And all that.
Oh yeah, Eugene Levy and John Candy.
Yeah, and he was writing a lot of that material too. So I guess it's a theme with me is it does count for something that they're creating what they're doing as opposed to, and I'm not saying Kate McKinnon doesn't create, but there are some that like maybe let's just say Betty White. There's creativity, but she didn't create the words that she said on those TV shows. So if it carries a little bit of weight, a little legacy on the cake, if you're creating the words as well. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Didn't Harold Ramis also write Stripes?
Yes.
Yep.
Almost all of those movies from the Lampoon he was involved with. Okay, here we go. This is going to be interesting. I know where I'm going right away. The listeners will know, but I don't know where you guys are going to go. It's going to be very interesting. Jerry Lewis against Bob and Ray. And this is David Cohen. You are beginning our discussion.
You know, if you didn't tick me off before, Doug, and let me change my vote, I would have said Bob and Ray.
Right?
Yeah, I'm going to still say Bob and Ray because, you know, it's a little unfair to put a comedy team against one person. If both guys on the comedy team or women are funny, and Bob and Ray were, I think, just more innovative and funnier what they did than Jerry Lewis, although I love Jerry Lewis. I thought he's freaking hilarious. But, you know, it's a tough call like any of them, but yeah, Bob and Ray.
Okay, there we go. I'm going to take a look at Jerry Lewis. I would say this. With Dean Martin, that teaming, it did run its course, but was also a team, and we're not counting them as the team here, but he was a member of a team, and he was a driving force behind it, it seemed. But they both had their roles, and I'll tell you, that was a great matchup for the both of them. But once he left the team, he had a flurry of 2 or 3 movies that were really funny, and then to me sort of dropped the ball. And Bob and Ray never ever dropped the ball. I can listen to something from 1948. I can listen to something from 1985 from them. They spanned, all kinds of years, from 1946 to 1988. And again, that's not the most important thing, the time frame, but for them to be on the radio every single day during that time frame and continue to come up with new and innovative things to say, to improv, to hold your attention, to make you laugh out loud, go on, talk shows at night and do little routines, to star in Carnegie Hall show a couple of times.
We have a lot to get through, Doug. I mean, I don't mean to stop you, but, you're reprimanding us before about going on and changing our minds. You're trying to get through the show. Okay. Bob and Ray, we get it. Next.
It is a talk show. We do want to hear thoughts of what people are thinking.
Your thoughts, yeah.
All right. So, and Dan, I've left you with 4 minutes out of the 10 minutes to tell us where you stand.
I want to know what's in both of your coffee this morning. So did you both went with Bob and Ray? Is that what I?
That is correct, sir.
So it doesn't make a difference what I say. So I'm going to pull a David Cohen and say it doesn't matter. I'm not voting.
There you go. I respect that.
That's
all right. So here's what I have to say, and this is actually I'm going to bring in a lot of your listener feedback here. So one of your listeners, Fritz in Pennsylvania, described Bob and Ray in a way that really resonated with me. He said, "These guys were unheralded geniuses. I always enjoyed listening to their radio programs, and they bring back very specific childhood memories for me." But note that Fritz used the word unheralded in his description. It seems like a lot of your listeners, like Alexandra in Brooklyn, New York, are not at all familiar with who Bob and Ray are. And that's really a shame. In fact, I would encourage you, if you've never heard of Bob and Ray, go to YouTube or wherever you need to go to listen to a clip of them, because they are absolute geniuses. But maybe it's related to the reach of radio versus the reach of television and movies, but everyone knows and everyone loved Jerry Lewis. I have personally always been a big fan of his, I'll call them zany characters, and his work with and without Dean Martin. So on this one, I'm actually leaning toward where listeners were, like Lauren Kay in New York, who said, really based on the difference in their notoriety, she said, I don't know who Bob and Ray are, and I love Cinderfella, so let's go with Jerry Lewis. And I agree. I would have voted for Jerry Lewis. So it's another one of my brackets busted by you two.
Questionable Cinderfella. Of all the movies that he made, that's the one that she selects. I'll just leave it out there. I get that.
You're so cranky today, man.
Now he's
taking it out on listeners. It's like we're not enough, Dan, anymore. He's got to lob grenades at the listeners.
You say to someone, name me a Jerry Lewis movie. Will they say that movie?
No, I would have said The Nutty Professor.
Thank you. Okay, so
young ladies. Yeah.
We've gone through it. We've gone through quite a bit here. We have Martin Short is now in the Sweet 16. Larry David, Betty White, David Letterman, Dana Carvey, Richard Pryor, Harold Ramis, and Bob and Ray.
Wait, I think, didn't Gary Shandling beat Dana Carvey?
What did I said Dana Carvey? I'm so sorry. Gary Shandling. What did I? It was.
Yeah, remember I tried to change the Dana Carvey and you didn't let me?
Correct.
Yeah,
it is Gary
just shut up and I should have just let him say Dana Carvey.
Okay,
I just blew it.
All right. We will be back next week. Will you be back to find out who also will be part of the Sweet 16, and thereafter to find out who is the funniest person of all time? Thank you, gentlemen. We will see you next week.